with all the closures and the cancellations of birth classes around the country, hospitals are no longer conducting birth classes, and understandably, the classes I used to run through the hospitals would often have, 20 to 30 people crammed in an education room, spending the whole day together. And at a time like this, it's actually it's not practical, and probably not the best way forward. So, as much as it's I can imagine that it's a real source of stress and anxiety for new parents, particularly first-time parents. We need to adapt. So that's what I'm doing with my business and with my information. I feel like it's now more than ever, it's a really important time to be informed and to head towards your birth with some skills and some confidence. And especially when there's so much uncertainty around. And, these are really unprecedented times. So we can get scared, we can get worried, or we can adapt. And that's what's happening with ritual oils and birth. My plans are to create a live webinar. I can either do it individually one-on-one with you. I can still do personal one-on-one in-home birth classes, as long as everyone is well and obviously until the government says otherwise. But I'm hoping to create a bit of a virtual community and have some birth classes that can bring groups together. Because the things that we're going to miss out on due to the social isolation and social distancing are things like your hospital birth classes and the connections you make there, mothers groups. I can't imagine that they are going to be going ahead, which again, I know people who are still seeing their mothers groups, and their kids are teenagers now. And, I still hear from people in my mother's group from 13 years ago. And these are, some of these are really lifelong connections that you make. And also things like group fitness classes. When I had Cam, I did the most amazing class at the gym where we'd go in and we'd do a baby and mum fitness class. Then we'd do a bit of a hydrotherapy session with the babies in the pool, and then we'd have a speaker come, and often there were up to 20 to 30 mums or more and dads or more in there, and the connections I've made from there, I still see and hear from people that I did that with, and our kids are in their teens, our kids are in high school now. So those sorts of things are going to be restricted, and we're not going to be able to do those same things for people that are having babies now, which is sad. So what I want to do is create a bit of a virtual community. So while I will offer individual sessions via Zoom live, I'm really hoping that we can create a virtual community and create some connection for you mums that may not be able to take advantage of those sorts of things in person until this all blows over, which will eventually happen. But as it stands, we need to create connection where we can. And what I will be doing is creating a 4-class live series. You can choose to do one or more, or the whole lot. But I would really like to see that we could create a community that will continue and travel through for the 4 classes, because they are all very relevant. And I'll give you a bit of an overview of what they're about. You'll see on my website that I've got a description of each class, but I'll give you a quick run through now. So the first class is Natural Strategies for Birth, and that is all about having an idea of what labour might feel like, what it might look like, and how it is managed in stages in accordance with sort of hospital care. Because ultimately most people are going to have babies in hospitals, and this staged organisational approach is how it's looked at in hospitals. So we'll look at that. We'll look at what contractions might feel like, how we can use our body and mind to cope and have really good skills for birth, and how we can not get in the way of our body doing what it is made to do. Because quite often our body just needs to be left to do what it needs to do, and we tend to fight against it. So I'll give you some good skills and some ideas of how you can naturally help your labour progress, and how you can not get in the way of the process. We will look at loads of different techniques, natural techniques, and hopefully you will have a good idea of what to expect. Second class is all about your body. It's all about active movement. We'll do a bit of a labour body sequence that will help get your baby in a good position for birth. We'll look at your pelvis. We'll look at a load of things that are really, really important for helping your labour progress smoothly. And it's about balance, it's about alignment, it's about mobility of your pelvis, your pelvic floor, and all of that kind of thing. Really, really important class, and some things that can really help labour crack on and get your baby in a really smooth groove for birth. Third class, really important, especially if you're birthing in hospital. I mean, also important if you're birthing at home as well. And that is taking you through explaining common interventions. It's not going to take you through every birth intervention, but it's going to take you through the majority of the common ones that we come up against when you're in hospital. Because one thing I did find working in labour ward was that a lot of people had no idea about a lot of the things that, one, they have choice over, but also just what it is practically like, for example, to have an epidural. What is it actually? What does it look like? What does it mean? And I will take you through the step by step, practically what happens, because a lot of people have no idea. They just get the advice of just get the epidural, but don't get the background information to make an informed decision. We talk about induction of labour, talk about monitoring, we talk about assisted birth, and just it's from a very practical standpoint. And so then you have a good grounding before labour starts, because when you're in labour, it is very, very hard to take on new information. So if you're going into it with a bit of a background knowledge, then you are better prepared. And it's good to know about these things, because you can't give consent if you don't have information. So that's the crux of this class, is to make sure that you go into labour with a really good information and some knowledge. The fourth class, again, really important, and it's one that I found was less attended in hospitals when I ran a class that was all about baby care and babies and what babies are like. Loads of people were interested in birth and that kind of thing, but it was like the baby section was like an afterthought. And look, I was a bit the same. I was a bit the same with my first. I was a bit like, it's going to come out, I'm going to feed it, I've got to deal with it, it's fine. And might have been my youth, but I wish I'd known a bit more. And the fourth trimester class that I run is basically about having realistic expectations of yourself and your baby. What it's like to have a newborn, what it's like the minute they're born, whether that's a surgical birth or a vaginal birth. We'll talk about common breastfeeding challenges, talk about the basics of baby care, and we'll hopefully give you a good grounding on what a normal baby looks like, and acts like, and what it feels like in the first 6 weeks. So if this is something that looks like that you may be interested in, if you're missing out on birth classes because your hospital has closed, please put some comments below about when would be a good time for you to do it, and I'm going to start organising it as soon as possible. I want to reach as many people as I can. This information is really important, and I think in a time where everyone is everyone's anxiety level has gone up a fair bit, I would love to be a part of bringing that anxiety level down, and I feel like education is the most important thing for us at the moment. So please comment below. I'd love to hear from you, and again, if you want to book an individual private one-on-one class via Zoom or in your home, or you're really keen on the group sessions, fabulous, and I look forward to hearing from you.